What we are going to do is have a tiny little panel / Q&A session here about building culture, developing. So James Mark's going to be with us. Stephen and Kaylin, y'all can both come up. Stephen's at All People in San Diego. Kaylin middle name is Bishop. How awesome is that? I just found out. And he's in College Station. And both of these guys have gone from a really small team to growing. And not that any of the four of us have done this perfectly or have the great answers, but more to say, here's some things that we've learned along the way and how we've grown. And the great thing, specifically to encourage Kaylin, is their church is like the best worshipers. Like, people just love to worship God, and people love to do that. And so you don't get that way without having a worship leader that's developing that and growing that in people. And Steven's done a good job too, so we thought we'd have him up here. Basically, just he and James Mark showed up wearing matching hats, so we thought we'd let him on the stage. So that's really what it is about. It's really just the hat, so take notes, everyone. If you want to get on the stage, just match James Mark. So Kaylin had the red shoes, literally, that's all it was. So we just wanted to see, like, what is... I want to avoid like specific questions of like, I have this one bassist and what do I do about this? But more like, hey, this is a like systemic problem that we're running into. What are your thoughts? Have you dealt with this? Have you addressed this? And yeah, so the floor is open. Simeon.
Can you speak to how you approach working with folks who are families and folks who are, single and married? I've heard it said that students are flakes and families are rocks, and each have their own challenges. It takes a lot of effort to move a family into your ministry so that you're there to solve. And for students, just you don't know what you're getting at times. So you need to talk about the complexity of folks who are can serve once every 9 weeks, or whatever it is. For a lot of
Well, I would say that it's true. There's pros and cons to the different seasons of life. I think this is probably one of those things that I would say really falls in this conversation that we're having about that it's people, and so it means a lot of conversations, And we, it's Owen and Nate's job now that Nate's here, to make our schedule for our Sunday services. And they make a schedule. It used to be I would make it, then it became Owen and I would make it, then it became Owen makes it and shows it to me. And now it's like, I think it's Nate's job, and then he shows it to you, and then if it needs to come to me, it will. But hopefully what you're seeing there is like we talk about that, like it matters. So if we look and we go, these are all the same singers, and we're leaving this person out because it's a little bit difficult to get them in, then we go ahead and have that conversation. We say, hey, we're leaving this person out. It's just not easy to get them involved. They're awesome, but then you never know if they're going to say yes. And they got this kid, and this kid has special needs, and so it's hard to make it work for them in their schedule. And they got 3 other kids that are playing flag football and volleyball and everything, and that's a lot of times their responses to why they decline or whatever. The conversation becomes just, is there something we can call forth from them, I think the question of what do you want to do in this season with us? And if we're saying we'll take you 2 or 3 times a month on a Sunday because you're amazing and we want you to be an influencer among us, then if we know that, then we'll say, what do you want to do? If they're like, maybe I can give you once, That's a different conversation, I think, than someone who says, I love this is awesome, except I decline 3 out of 4 times, Then after a while, we'd have a conversation. Hey, it's funny. You tend to decline 3 out of 4 times. Maybe we could talk about why that is. And that just gets us to what do you want to do, And that's same thing on at least the seemingly always available college students. You know, I think that's a little bit of a misnomer, but can feel that way for sure. So it's we, you know, Owen will show me the schedule and go, what do you think about this? And I'll look at it and I'll say, we're not scheduling her more than very much. And he'll be like, I know. I thought you were going to say that. It's not easy to work with that person, you know, and their schedule or whatever. Like, okay, so we'll have that conversation at that point.
Yeah, we have someone who travels a lot in the semester. So actually, Nate already has when she's singing in November and December scheduled out. And we've known since September because she said, I'm gone all these days. She's a great worship leader, but she's just not around very much. And so she said, like, these are the dates I'm available through the whole semester. And she already knows she's singing like December 8th or something, except for she just told us she's moving. So
we just found out she's moving. Also, I don't remember if you said this or not, but as a part of our culture, which I know is not necessarily everyone's culture, but this is one of those things that was kind of something we started off right for us, and we've never come off it, and it really wasn't like I thought ahead and planned and just had this grand vision, but we have always had rehearsal on Thursday nights. So that dates back to, babe, when did we start that? Like in 96 or something? Like when we were not Antioch yet, we were having Thursday night rehearsals for college band. And then we just kind of like kept that rolling after we planted the church. And so we've never stopped. So now when we say someone says they're busy, that means I can't be at rehearsal. That means you can't sing on Sunday. Now we're not saying you can't sing on Sunday if you can't rehearsal. It's not like that. It's just, of course, you rehearse and then you play, right? So people will decline because they can't be there Thursday. Now that's the template, that's the expectation. Just like you guys, we get to a place where sometimes we're like, we got to have that person play. And so can we have them come another day and work with the person that would be best for them to work with? Or are we just going to give them a pass on this one and say, we need you to work at it? And there are some people there that, you know, you guys have this too, but who are really great musicians and they aren't able to come to rehearsal legitimately. And so we look at them and say, I know you're awesome. Awesome people still rehearse on their own time. So that's what you're going to do, right? I am now. You know, because I was kind of thinking about sleeping in all day Saturday, you know, but now I'm going to get up and do what it takes to be a part of this team, you know. Now, we don't hold that over them, you know. I say it that way kind of joking, but we don't hold it over them, but we try to make it a similar experience. The template is that, you know, if you decline Thursday, then you can't sing on Sunday. So that's why we're talking about somebody being busy and too busy for being in. That doesn't mean she doesn't do life with church. She'd probably still go on Sunday, but that's the way. That's one of the things that affects our scheduling of people.
Sorry about you.
So I have a question. How do you build team unity, whether it's like sitting in a situation where you know, dad who's maybe once every other month and all these college students, or maybe like Owen was referring to, you have a core team, then there's like a new person. How do you foster that process?
Cool. So just first off, just to give you like framework for where we're at right now is like thank you. With what I struggled with, you know, wanting to not tell people they were terrible and could never sing with us again or whatever, you know. And really wanted to help everybody grow. So we created just basically what we call a worship community, which is anybody in the church who even thinks that they like worship a lot, you know, or, you know, anybody who's willing to say, like, I want to learn how to lead worship, or I want to grow in an instrument, or whatever. So invite them into the worship community. They audition, and I tell them, don't worry, this isn't your, like, Sunday team audition. Those don't exist anymore right now, you know, or whatever. So we've got all these people who want to be, like, connected to worship stuff, and then I've got all these people that are in my band, you know, 25, 30 people that are, like, playing our Sunday and college bands. And for a long time, we were not that connected at all, and it was like present in the music, you know, like you can tell we don't hang out that often, you know, just like we are not melding, and you know, prayer times are awkward, you know, or whatever. And so basically we've just been trying stuff, and in our community, even college students are busy. Like we have over 800, 900 campus organizations at A&M. So like every student has other things that they do too, you know? So we don't even have this like there's only a small amount of college students who are like diehard, bleeding Antioch and like everything, you know? So not everybody's got all the time that we wish that they would. So basically for my worship team people, I've said, okay, here's what I want your commitment to be literally this semester is the first time. Like, lead one Sunday a month at least, attend, one Sunday, what else? Collaborative. So we started these Saturday deals, which we're calling our worship collaboratives from 9 to 11 a.m. A band of Sunday team members show up, and then we schedule people who don't play on the Sunday team to come and shadow, and then we also invite anybody else in the worship team to come and watch. And we basically play the same song 6 times in a row or 7 times in a row. We switch drummers out, we switch bass players out, we take pauses and talk about how we're playing and stuff like that. And it's been awesome for forming like relationships and trying to get some consistency and teach people how to play creatively who like don't know how to do that, you know? And so really like that's what right now we do it every week, and I can, yeah, I know. Seriously, my wife is like, wow. So I can't long term commit to doing those. And right now we've done 4 and they've been incredible. And I'm not going to plan on going to all of them. We might cut those down to once every 2 weeks. It kind of depends. Like, they're going really well. And like, we've had like 30 people at church on a Saturday at 9 a.m., you know? And it's a lot of fun. And like, people that are in the worship community that I haven't seen for 8 months because they jumped in but didn't know how to like jump in beyond, you know, being like, okay, I'll do it. And then it's like, now what, you know? So it's been awesome. People, we get to talk about all the like values, and like it's really pulling people into like the worship values and all that kind of, like, I'm really excited because all these things that we've been talking about, I'm like, I can talk about it there, you know? And so that's what we've done right now. We don't have a team night right now even because, like I said, everybody's got stupid crap they do elsewhere. Like, yeah, I'm like, who cares about that organization, you know? But they do, and so they go every Monday night, every Wednesday night, everything. You know, there's no nights that are free except rehearsal night. And then there's Breakaway, different discussion, on-campus ministry. So like, we don't have a team night that like works right now. If we did it, it would be a big push, like a big push. And I'm just like pushing that off as far as I can. But Saturday morning worship collaborative is really working out. So it's helping pull people into the team, pulling them together, letting them talk and have fun together, and pulling people who are not on the team in to show them like what we're about and get to talk about excellence when they are not yet excellent. And it's like, okay, they're comfortable in that environment.
That is brilliant, dude. What the heck?
I think you should talk about this as well, Stephen, because you guys have had lots of different kinds of people. One thing I'd say is that we also pepper our conversations with honor of the different kinds of people, you know? And I think even if I can't get my 48-year-old keys player who played today to mesh with my high school electric guitar player who played today, if I just can't get them to hang, you know? Like, I will say, with the band here, I would say something to Dennis and get everyone to agree with me. This guy rocks in this way. Isn't that true, everybody? Yes, it is. It is true. Dennis, why don't you pray that over us, and we'll receive that. Same thing is with someone like Cameron. We would say, man, you crushed it today. That was awesome. I know that there are things that I might pick out that he can get better in, and we can have that conversation. But if I encourage him to his face one-on-one, that's awesome. But there are times where I do it in front of other people so that we are honoring one another, because when we honor one another, it makes room for relationship. So then I've walked in at times into the break room, and our super cool hipster electric guitar player is asking Dennis how he downloaded those sounds so that he can use them in Ableton, you know. And I'm like, I didn't make that happen, you know. But they're now having a conversation, maybe just because I was helping them honor one another. So
that was good, bro. We in our team nights or our team mornings, as you have every single week, because it's not much different, honestly. We'll do the hot seat section where you just do that very thing, where I'm just like selecting the people that maybe you take that more outcast person, which I think is just funny you're asking this question because you're great at this, Simeon. But Well, this is Becky too. So the whole thing I feel like began with Simeon's. How do I? So the same. Yeah. So we'll do the hot seat, and I'll take those moments where I haven't seen that 50-year-old person connecting at all for the last bit, but they do so much and nobody knows, and so I will stand them up in front of the whole crew and tell them I'll start simple, just something that nobody would necessarily know, usually in their job, and maybe it can be goofy, like what they did in high school. They were a twirler and no one knew that they, or they belted high in kung fu, and just you could do that, I guess. But I'm like picking a meaningful thing, and so like I think highlighting people in the group, like literally you do it one time. Like we do team night once a month. I'll get someone that person that I feel like is kind of on the fringe, or that crowd of people, maybe staying up like 5 or 6 of these people that we know, we need you, older person, or man, we need you, young, passionate youth person who comes and this one kid Ubers to our team night. I didn't know his parents would let him do that, but I'm like, well, okay. So just like highlighting a section, and for us at least, I think I'm amazed people don't have healthy. I'm not amazed that people don't have healthy families. People don't have healthy families. That's just the point. What I'm amazed is when you do healthy family and you affirm them in front of everyone. Oh my goodness, it's like they're full for the next year. And then everyone is going and talking to them and like, oh, you're an engineer too. I was thinking about doing engineering, and they have these little discipleship relationships that form. And my second thought was for bringing people along and keeping unity. Our issue has been with if I get so into my vision, I forget the spouses exist, and so, or I didn't forget. I just thought these people who are saying yes every week were consulting their spouse. So the Hillsong guys say this phrase like you have to value bringing your family along with the journey, or bring them along for the journey, or some phrase. But so I include the spouses as a part of our worship community. They get PCO invites to all of our team nights. They're all welcome all the time. If they have a little young baby, they can come. I actually let a couple of super. They had some of these boys had super developmental issues, and they just about destroyed the team night 3 times. Before I was like, is there a Finding Nemo on someone's iPad that we could just no, but just so this one would feel like we want you here. I don't know if that answers the question.
One other thing is just to say, I think do what works for your context. There's no way we could get our team to show up to a weekly Saturday morning deal, but that's working for them. So I would just encourage you. I know especially a lot of you guys like the Bostons, the Houstons, the Dallas, Fort Worth people, that everyone's really spread out. That it's not like, oh, it's just readily accessible, that, as opposed to like us small town Texas people that everyone lives within 10 minutes of one another, that it's not realistic to be like, every week we're all going to get together in addition to practice and Sunday. But I would encourage you to, once a month is not it's not that. I mean, initially it feels like this is such a big commitment, but if you look at it as 4 times in a semester, people are like, oh yeah, I can do that. And I would just encourage you that it really is worth it to fight for that, because what Kaylin said is you feel on the stage when people are friends and people are doing it together. Who did you call on, Tyler?
Just to ask, so I'm speaking on the Norman side of things, this is something we've been discussing, but 7 years in, we're just now implementing a Thursday night practice. And we're seeing that a lot of our key players are unable to make the practice, which means they're unable to play on Sunday morning. And the fear that we're having is if we make that exception, then we're going to have certain people who are taking advantage of that grace. So what would you speak into that as far as like really changing cultural shift?
The first thing I'd say is that that's a good conversation to have with the senior leader as well, for him to understand the vision behind that growth pattern. Because almost any time that you grow, there's some sort of pushback. When you're working out, you first tear your muscles before they grow, and I'd say we have had conversations at times to say, hey, we're going to be kind of holding our team to a line here, encouraging them and helping them to do it. But at some point, you're going to have to say, oh, you can't come to rehearsal? That's okay, man. We'll get you another time when you can. And they'll be like, okay. Well, the first couple times, I might be like, sweet, weekend off, you know? And that's great because they're awesome and they can pick it up and you know they could. And you're going to be having to work harder on that rehearsal to make sure that other person who said yes because they've been dying to, but they actually can't nail the runs and the licks and stuff, it's going to make you work harder. And you have to trust that that's going to be worth it, you know? But I would say making sure that the senior leader knows that if on a Sunday, why does it seem like you guys are kind of really working hard to make just normal happen? A lot of that I'd say that you can one of the things I think we've done okay to well, strong to quite strong maybe, is giving those people who are awesome vision for it before we tell everybody else, and calling it out of them and saying, we need you to be in on this with us, rather than just implementing a strategy, you know. That being said, real life does happen, and our best electric player, best keys player, best drummer, whatever, just says, hey, I can't be there. And we have to go, okay, man, that's a bummer, but we'll see you next time, you know. And that is easier when they know why it's happening and they kind of feel like they're a part of it, you know. And we don't do this all the time, but we have said, are you sure you can't make it work? You know, like, what tell me about that, you know? And they'll explain it, be like, okay, well, what if you showed up 15 minutes late then? You know, oh, I can totally do that. Oh, okay, well, why don't we have you do that, and then maybe we can just shift all of rehearsal 15 minutes. Sure, dude, great. You know, meaning for a week, not always. When we get in a pinch is what I'm talking about. Does that make sense? So giving them vision and then also making room a little bit. That's the tough thing is for us is we have the conversation. Owen's been saying, get people out there. Goodness gracious. Like get people out there and give them stretch points and places to grow and everything. Yes. But we also have conversations at times looking at our list and going, that's a lot of stretching. You know, this is a big conversation with each of the people in this band. I don't know that we want to stretch that much this week. And sometimes it falls that way. Like, well, that's who's available. Well, I might then call a person in and say, hey, you sure you can't be there? Because we'd love to have you, like really love, not just a PCO invite love. I personally would love it if you'd be there for this one. And they're like, I just can't be at rehearsal. And I have to weigh, well, would it actually be better for that person to be there on Sunday for this experience for everybody? Not just like that it's good, that the rest of the band feels strong, secure, can get some feedback. Because if everybody on the whole thing is in a major growth pattern, then nobody can help teach each other, you know. I would say that's extremely rare that happens nowadays, but it does happen, and we have that conversation for sure. So again, my thing is it's the template. That's where we start. We change it, we move it around, we give grace to it all the time. But because we've said it that way, I would say most of our rehearsals are because people are there on Thursday because they're leading on Sunday. It just goes that way. Now that we've gotten on this side of things.
I definitely agree. Like we stopped. We felt the Lord very clearly told us to stop rehearsing at a certain point, and I don't advise that unless you feel like the Lord told you to do that. But I will say I love about MJ. What's his name? James Mark, JMG. I was thinking of the guy named MJ that I was about to talk about. I love what JMJ said. Of like including those people, because when we went away from rehearsals. We still want to bring in new people, and now we don't have a time to hang out with those people anymore during the week to test them, and video auditions are great, but there's like a second step. So it allowed us to raise up position leaders, you know, like you probably already have them just amongst you or whatever. And so because there wasn't a rehearsal, those position leaders began to like create defaults for their position, like, or even for the band, like defaults that we just always do that you normally kind of figure out in a rehearsal and kind of comes naturally, but we had to figure out what those are. So like, hey, just don't stop playing at the end of the song unless the leader says stop. Because we'd have all of us play, and then one guy's like, whoop. We're like, keep playing. Like, we didn't rehearse, I didn't know. We're like, okay, we will always want you to keep playing until he's like, done, you know, things like that. And then, so then they began to Owen's over, like, if Owen was with us, he'd be over the keys, obviously, and maybe over all the front line. And so he's communicating to all those people. And so it created these leadership streams inside of our team. And so I've always wondered, though, will we start another Thursday rehearsal? Or it'll be Wednesday for us because our college service is Thursday. And I would definitely just be like, a month out, be like, okay, MJ, Derek, so-and-so, okay, we got to do this. Can we all do it together? I don't know how she'd do it,
That's all I have to say about that.
The only other thing I would say is that when you implement change, you lose people, honestly. And not that you're going to lose, I pray you don't lose some of your best people, but when we started really giving feedback to people in like 2011, we lost a majority of our front line. And it was really hard. And we were like, this person's been with us for so long, and some things were just life, and it was like a natural transition, and someone were these like, we've been waiting to have this conversation with you for 5 years, and now we finally are, and now it's awkward. And
That's why it was so great to have Johanna, Nolan, and Claire back today, because they just left.
Yeah, they all
We
left.
started-
it's like, wow, finally worked through all our wounds. No, just kidding. But just to be real, of like, don't let the fear, again, of like looking long term, of like, I know this is the right decision for long term, but it might mean a short term bummer. Like our electric guitarist just stepped out.
Real talk on that. Owen and I were talking one day, and somebody had left, and he goes, somebody had decided to step out and everything. And honestly, this was a mixture of a lot of drop balls on conversations I should have had, as well as just not being the easiest person to work with for me personally. And we were good relationally, still are, but they just decided to not be in the band anymore, and gave me some leadership feedback on their way out that I took to heart, and I needed it. But when they stopped, Owen said, you realize that is the last of the people that were in when we decided to change how we do this. Yeah.
In a year or 2 times.
Yeah, and some of our backline. And so that was it. And it was like, wow, we're in a different place here. And now, and also some of it I saw was on about like Owen was just out of college. He was in college when he started helping, and then he was just out of college, so he's a young guy, and he steps in, and he's leading people who are older than him, been around here for longer. Some of them been around longer than me in the church, So, he's 22, 23, and he's telling people in their mid-late 30s, hey, can we have a conversation so I can give you some feedback? And that's awkward, We were learning how to do it and everything, and when that transition happened, when that last person did, I was like, wow, we got them out. That's not, I'd be glad if that person was still in. It probably would be a better mark on my record, that I actually communicated well, and I did it well, that person would stay around and keep growing. But in that they chose to leave, it was a demarcation line for us. Now the people that are here walk in with a clear expectation, because we have for so long communicated what we want our culture to be, that now they walk in going, what is this place? Oh, okay. And even if it's not the way their church is, where they came from, now they know how to get in here, So that was definitely a change, a transition. We're there, it's kind of...
So when you do the auditions on video or in person or however you do it, Stevie, you told me this 2.5 years ago when we came out before we played in Salt Lake, and we were driving around, like, never say really no immediately, just kind of say push pause and like, let's keep talking. Can you give me some more verbiage for like
Still bringing snacks? Like,
Please don't stop tithing. Please don't stop rolling. It's not a small place. So just doing it well, and but also being super clear. No, I just put in great. Okay, great. I've got
miniature feedback. So, like, I think what I started trying to do is really point the audition more at them in the first place, in the way of saying, no matter where you are, I want to help you move forward, you know? And I can frame it around the worship community, which is nice right now. And, you know, you guys don't have the same thing already running, but really what I do is I'm saying, this audition is about me meeting you, knowing who you are, and getting an idea of what you do, and trying to figure out where is the best place to put you right now to help you grow. You know, what we look for on our Sunday team is a team that's going to lead our church, you know, blah, 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 blah. You know what I'm going to say, you know, and like lead with strength, lead with these things, you know. And so it's like, these are the things that we value. So I just want to know where you're at right now and be able to help you. That may be having you lead at Life Group or at ADS, or it might just be giving you some advice on what things to go grow in, you know. And you taught me this one a couple worship schools back. It basically like puts it back in their court of like, are you going to try to get better or are you not? And so some people they'll come back and like either they're better or they're not. And you can honestly at that point just be honest with the feedback, you know? And it's like they already know that like, hey, you've already said like this is what we want to lead with, you know, confidence or whatever. And you've told them about like where you're seeing they need to grow in it. So then you just get to answer the question each time that they come back: are you growing, or are they growing, or are they not? Now, I haven't had anybody so far that's like so bad that I felt like I needed to be like, find something else, you know? But honestly, I can almost always say, work on this, and they're either going to come back or they're not, you know? So.
follow-up question to that. Maybe this will help clarify your thought, or maybe just make it worse. So like some things are like I auditioned a girl the other day. She can play all the lead stuff on piano, but she can't play two click at all. Like it's just like she just like da 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 da. It's just like what just happened? Like every note was perfect. You need to go work on that click stuff. So that's like easy. Like hey, go work on the click, come back in 3 weeks talk. But then you have some people that can hit notes. Like, you're like, can you actually hit a note? It's like, yeah, you can hit a note, but you're telling them, I don't know if it's ever going to be amazing. Yeah. How do we work through stuff like that, I guess, as a follow-up? It's like, you hit the note, that's what we're asking you to do, but it doesn't sound right.
So Owen, you might be able to add to this because you are the ninja vocalist. So I say, I've got a couple of people like this. So the last person I did this with surprised me and was better in a month. And I thought they were, I thought I was doomed. I actually had some hope because I'm a positivity person to a fault. And I like pleasing people too. But I was like, maybe there's a chance. And this other person who's always helped me find the way out for people, they had more hope than I did on certain people. This person steps in and is like, I don't think that's ever going to change. And I was like, great. My first lost cause. I didn't know they existed. You know, leadership talks are going out the wall. You know, anyway. So, but what I just with a vocalist, I'm like, hey, I think honestly to work in our context and to play our plays, and I always make fun of the football analogy. I'm like, you just really need some real lessons next to win in our culture. So I use the win phrase. I'm like, I just don't think it's going to be a win. And they could be really opinionated and type A and intellectual about it, but I'll be like, I hear all that stuff. I just am not, I still can't see how it would be a win for you to like play next week. So I think my thought is go take a lesson or so, and then tell them that I'm wondering about your tone, and then come back, And so I point them to lessons. And so I did this the last person I did, she does, is this being recorded right now? Okay. Hallelujah. Well, she did amazing. Actually, she did amazing. So I'll use exactly what I told her.
Angie. You're awesome.
So you, no, she knows this. She's done so much choir in her life that she'd learned the universal sound, but there wasn't much of the emotional connection. And then because she was working so hard to find that contemporary thing, she would go really pitchy. And then she would lose track of harmony, and she was just trying so hard. And so for her, I was like, I think the choir thing is awesome. So I created a group vocal, and she's helping with that, and what I did find in the process with her is that the thought that majority people don't have harmony naturally, and that's totally okay to just have them sing melody. If you want to involving vocalists, and first place for them to sing melody in is in our group vocal, which we don't call it choir because people don't want to come to a choir for some reason in our city. But you say group vocal and the thing doubles. And they're like, I'm just a worshiper, I'm like, please. So they get scheduled group vocal melody. There's like 9 of them, and then there's like 2 people who sing harmony, and somehow that works. I don't know why. It sounds fine. So, and those people are like, I would just rather sing harmony. Like the melody doesn't really communicate what I don't communicate. I'm like, great. So I stick them there, and so I put it there. But then I was like, but if you really want to be a frontline singer, there's a more emotional connection we need. So, and I went to a vocal coach that I go to and got thoughts from him. And so for her, we created a 3-pronged thing. And I said, you just try this. If it doesn't work, I just don't know. Maybe this is where my limit is, but I know I can't put you in yet, and it win. And for her, there was this like volume thing. So I was like, you got to sing in the pocket was the phrase instead of belt, because that was like how she got off. And I was like, now I want you to sing forward, not up and back. And because like when you say I'm going to go to the store, you say store, but you don't say I'm going to go to the store. So I'm like, you don't do that when you talk. So just help me, help me like. And Good Father was the hard one. Good Father, it was just a hard song for some reason. She felt so passionate that she'd just kind of go, you're a good. I'm like, whoa. You're a good, And my vocal coach is talking me through all this, and I'm talking to her, and she's like, oh my gosh, it's so true. And it helped her pull out of the choir universal into like whatever we do, which is I'm usually singing incorrectly, but you feel connected to it emotionally more than that. So it was pocket volume, forward, not up and back to the soft palate, and then the vibrato was like this, and so I said match phrases to what you're practiced to. So like if you're listening to You Be the Glory, you wrote, but you sang To You Be the Glory. I want you to watch how he does and the vibrato's at the end. I want you to. So she started and she nailed it, and then she mimicked Taya on Touch the Sky and sounded just like her, and I was like. Well, but then she listens to Katie Torwalt. No good, because Katie's a belter. So she listens to Katie and is like, I'm a champion. And I'm like, what? No. But she does Touch the Sky, and she is killing it. I mean, I almost cried listening to the song. Did I just get too specific?
No, actually.
I would like to speak to Katie's vibrato. I said I would like to speak to Katie's vibrato.
Yeah, exactly. He's got some good thoughts here.
It's a lot.
One of the things I want to kind of pluck out of what Stephen is saying here is that, it's not that. What I'm saying is you can tell Stephen didn't already have formed thoughts for how to communicate feedback about this. So it took some work to come to what it is we're looking for. And there is a side of this that what you're saying is we don't want to sound like that. We want to sound like this. And that can be at the risk of saying, and you don't sound like us. So that needs to be communicated well, but it needs to be communicated. So now, when we started recording albums, we talked a lot about the Antioch Live sound. What is the Antioch Live sound? And now if you listen through the albums, and you listen to critically, you could hear it forming, through the years. But remember, in 2012, we were just sitting there on a stage trying to figure out how to play this song, right? And we had to come up with language. No, that's not true. It was not. We were weeks and hours. It was just not it just wasn't efficient. Anyway, so now I feel like I have like a lot of thoughts, like what Stephen was saying there, to communicate. Now, when someone else has either the opposite problem or the same problem, he has kind of a centering for how to communicate to them. And so we have a couple people who come from the choir world or come from pedagogy kind of experience, and they have a way, and they don't have any kind of, they don't have knowledge of what they do. They've been taught something. They know they like to sing, or they might know what they're doing and they're doing it on purpose. I don't know. But for me to say, okay, so the issue of vibrato is a tool. It's not a default. It's something you use. So do you know when you're using it and when you're not? And they're like, oh, totally. I'll be like, okay, well, then we have a difference of how that is supposed to be used, how I would like for it to be used in our sound. And not my sound, because that gets really like me against you. But like in our sound, what we'd like is for it to be a tool used. And some people are going to use it better than others just because it's kind of a part of their voice, you know. But anybody who has a Tommy gun vibrato is going to have to figure out where to put that in. You know what I'm saying? Like that thing. That's great for Phil Wickham every once in a while, but for most of us, please don't even try to do that, you know. And for most people who have something that's a little more that way, they don't recognize it. You're just calling it out for the first time. It's a tool. You can use it. I come to that conclusion because of how many times I've looked at Owen and gone, okay, how do we tell this person we hate the way they sing? You know, like we love them. We love that they sing. But sometimes they do this thing. What are they doing? What is that? You know, I don't know what it is. He might, when we talk back and forth, we come to something to say to them. And that's the place of faith, the place of risk, to say, okay, now I want to say this and get your thoughts on it. And it can be messy, but most of the time, like I said, it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. If I don't give it to them personally, they won't take it quite as personally. And usually their response has been either, wow, I've never thought of this, or I have thought of this and I have no idea how to change it. So this is helpful. And we just do that thing of like, why don't you practice it for a few weeks? You know, we'll keep the conversation going. And the best thing about that is you have your foot in the door, you know. This is now a conversation we're having. So the work to put it into language is worth it. And I will say, the work to put it into language is going to make you feel stupid as you start into that. Because I just don't know how to tell a drummer, I don't like it. And I don't know why, but I just don't like it. I like it when this guy plays drums. I don't like it when you do. Just maybe go talk to him. That's not good feedback, you know, by itself. But it's going to take me work to go, what is it I don't like? What is it I'm not, you know? And so for me, my wife is a bass player. She probably has some very clear thoughts about why this drummer is different than this drummer. Or, you know, and it's not gossip. It's how can I tell this person I want them to do something more better, you know? Yeah. Through that process, you will become more clear what your own preferences are. And you have to figure out what to do with your preferences. Are your preferences going to be the voice of your music? Or are they another additive, you know, to that expression? And as you define those things, create what Owen was talking about, like some defaults and some we call them core competencies for our musicians and instrumentalists and singers, you know, and how much my own preferences come into that. But we are forming something, and that thing that sound we're forming is moving and evolving. It used to not include electronica at all, and now it does. You know, so now we've got these electronic beats and sounds and synth stuff that are coming in, but that I don't think we even thought about that in 2012 and Forever Sound. You know, we're just trying to get Preston's guitar to stay in tune. You know, for the crying out loud. So now with Brandon Seibert, you know, and his influence and Thomas's influence, then all of a sudden these other things are more possible. So now that's part of the Antioch Live sound, you know. So it's not like we'd locked down and we're going to stay here until we're the next classic rock, you know. But we are trying to keep that definition clear.
One more question, Kristen, you got it.
As far as the face, those that you allow on the Sunday morning platform, as you're trying to draw in and speak to your congregation, do you have an age limit? Or do you go hard after, how do you turn people down that are too old? Or or can cause distractions physically? Like, but not be shallow. Do you ever even think about that?
That
Do you
is
have
a
those
good question,
conversations?
but-
Because my pastors think about that. When
a good question. We'll see you guys tomorrow.
Best of luck. You're 300 pounds. You
Well,
answer.
You're like 300 pounds, so. You don't have to.
I would like a thought that's not based on experience. I think it'd be, for me, it'd be like, is this person going to communicate everything we want them to communicate, despite whatever is going against them? So that would be like the one question I would ask is like, well, are they 300 pounds and not confident, and or are they 300 pounds and like overtly confident and like, don't tell me what I'm doing wrong? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like it's like, is it one of those, or are they just like really carrying the exact same values and this, and like they can be themselves and be fine? Yeah, that would be like what I would ask, but thankfully I've never run across that question. So.
Well, so the older people in our congregation would fit in the same category as like a style difference. And so I can just, I'm not like, hey, oldie but a goodie, but not for today. I've never had to just do that. So what I usually run into is there's already a major style difference. And I'll be like, wow, a lot of the older people have already led so much more worship than like I've been alive. So I'll just honor them. I'm like, I think I might not have been a thought in my parents' mind when you were leading so many people in worship. So I just want to first of all honor you. I was like, hey, I heard your video audition, or I heard your audition. I was like, why do you want to sing with us? We don't sound like that. Like, I know that's a different sound altogether. Like, do you like our sound too? And just self-efface, because it's totally different. And usually, and I'm like, well, hey, that Tommy gun needs to turn into a pistol vibrato, or whatever, just to sound similar, and we love multi-gen. Our Sunday morning is multi-generational. That's the point. So I'd be great with a 60-year-old person up there if they would jump into what we're doing. So I start there. Then there's usually also the type A personality involved. Like if they're like 75 and like want to jump up there and sing, they might be like type A, and so that's a different thing of like, how do I draw in type A? Type A just means like very dominant, major opinions. They think very strongly, so you need them around, but they need to be with you as an armor bearer, not against you. That's two visions, which is division. So I think there's more thoughts on type A stuff that I go for. I need strong people, and I want them. There's just always like hey, I just ultimately need you to be with me, and so that's that combo. And then their first step would be just like, I want you to practice. So move from whoever your favorite singer is from 1984 that's your favorite to like, I want you to listen to Phil Wickham, and I want you to like try to sing his This Is Amazing Grace recently. Just send that to me. So I just start kind of working it through with them. If they're literally 300 pounds, I do put those people in my group vocal, because there's like 18 other people around them. So like, I just try not to put them, like they're going to probably not on the riser. There we have a person like that. They're not going to be up on the riser because it would break. So, but we put them up, and if their face are smiling like crazy, then I think there is health in being like, hey, no matter what size, shape, age, race you are, we want you. But I might not move them in the front line because I'm like, hey, we really move around a lot. Like we really are engaged in our worship, which that's just us. That may not be you, but our church, I'm down dancing around, and I'm like, I know that's going to be hard. And so I want you to, whenever you step in, I want you to be in alignment. So let's do group vocal for you. Okay, I'll stop.
Yeah, I love what both of you guys are saying is if they're going to be able to communicate the values of who we are and communicate worship biblically and expressively, then I think that's that. Most of the time when I find someone has something about them that is very different, either style-wise or, in their age or size or something like that, if there's a problem with them, it's really not so much those things. It is the insecurity of that or the inability to meld, So we joke a little bit, but if he was here, he'd be smiling about it. The guy who did play keys today is Dennis. He was wearing his shirt.
All blue outfit.
Yeah, exactly.
Really baggy.
He is, yeah, he is just a model for average, if you've ever seen that video. It's a video made, it's average, basically. It's hysterical video. It's a humor piece. But anyway, he is like in that, he would be in that, He is not on this stage right now, I asked him the first Sunday he played, and I said, okay, Dennis, how old are you? He said, 48. I go, you know what that means? He goes, it means you're not the oldest person in the room anymore. And I go, exactly. That's exactly what it means. And we just kind of laughed about it, celebrated it. I'm not going to make him change his clothes, but the thing is, he can teach our young guys who are excited about about playing cool new stuff, and making stuff. He can teach them how to do what we do. And we've had to have conversations with him about what we're looking for, what we're not looking for. But he just learned. He jumped to it. We're not going to let him go because he's a different look or different style or different. Even he wouldn't communicate like us, But he's been in a life group since the beginning. His kids, he's been serving and worship. His kids are great, and he brings them along. He brought them along last night or Monday night. Yeah, last night. Gosh, feels like it was 4 days ago for team night. And so he's a difference. But if there was someone else who's like 65 years old, we've had people who love to worship and have mentioned this. When I'm talking with them, the first thing is, wow, you're old, and you're going to keep that like Baptist choral vibrato thing going at 100 miles an hour. And wow, that bothers me. That's the first thing. The other thing, though, is like, okay, we are going to celebrate. That means we're going to smile and dance. It means that we're going to declare, we're going to lift our hands, we're going to get down on our knees. And if it comes down to the fact that this person just can't get down on their knees, I think we can work through that. Most of the time, the problem is not those things. The problem is you're a distraction because you don't really... we feel your insecurity, we feel your inability to meld with the rest of us, and I will say we've had some conversations lately about some people that have been pretty. It's sensitive to even talk about, but there are even people in our congregation that can worship in a way that can be distracting, and we have a couple people, especially one that just loves Jesus so much and has some mental limitations as well. And so we're just like, God, what do we do? Because, sometimes it feels like 2,000 people are just staring down going, what is she doing? And maybe they are. I don't know. But, man, if you ever talk to her, she's just been freed up from so much stuff. It's bringing me to tears right now. Jimmy even talked about this one individual one time on Sunday and talked about how she could lead us all in worship because of how she'd been set free. But let me get real with you. It's distracting. It's embarrassing that she does what she does. And so we talk about it once in a while. And Jimmy just goes, you know what? That's us. And we are going to talk about what we need to do, but we're not going to squelch her life, So we actually have moved her. We have asked her, invited her to a special seat because she was right in our camera shot, And it's like, the other 2,000 people in the room are not in the camera shot, just her, So I wouldn't say she is the sole expression of our worship, But this was a sensitive conversation, and action was not taken immediately. It was, let's talk about this until we all felt good about it. This is very extreme, but I'm really more communicating the value here that she's us. We're all a little broken, and we're willing to deal with the brokenness and not look cool to everybody for that. But we also want to continue to communicate more of a presence of God and a presence of us before Him, and not just leave question marks all the time in people's minds that are observing us for the first time or wanting to jump in. So that's where it came down to for us.
I think the big thing, and he just hit it at the end, is just that you have to be on the same page with your senior pastor of if they say no and you say yes, you're submitted under their leadership. And so then you get the new conversation of, now how do we tell this person that? And that's when I think you have to pull him in with you. Or if you say no and he says yes, then it's again, I think that's such a big part for us is, if I feel like, sure, why the heck not? But Jimmy's like, no way, no way. Or vice versa, I'm like, no way. And he's like, definitely, we need to do that. Then I need to get under him and serve him and have the conversation to say like, Jimmy, I really don't see the same thing as you. Can you help me? Or I have to communicate a position that's not mine, which is really hard for me to do and most of us to do, to say, I don't really believe this, but I'm about to tell you this. And so help me. James Mark and I do this a lot where I will disagree with him, but then we land with what he says. So then I say like, okay, so now how do I then convince this person that this is the right decision? Because I'm the one communicating, but I'm going with your decision, not mine. And so I think that's a great conversation to have and so important. Again, I think we've said this so many times, but it just comes down to relationships and it comes down to conversations. And I think that's been really huge for us to say like, okay, do you think this is distracting? Because we're fine with it, but it could be like, is it weird that fill in the blank? And then they can say like, yeah, it's really weird. Like I've been actually meaning to say something and just keep forgetting. Or like, well, I haven't noticed. And so great, we don't have to move on. But I think that's a huge thing is ultimately as worship pastors, we're under our senior pastor and we're under their vision and their leadership. And ultimately the long-term ramifications of the decision land in their lap over ours. And so I have to be submitted under that leadership. And it's a great conversation to have. Again, I mean, I know what we keep saying, like, I wish, I don't know, we need like a week-long retreat with all of our senior pastors after this thing of the like 18 questions to ask. But I think that really, something like that is something that I wouldn't feel comfortable just being like, this is what I think, so we're just going to do it without at least James Mark, if not Drew, our manager, or Jimmy as well, speaking to that. So I know that.
Say one last thing to that is when you asked about people being too young. For our Sunday stage, we've adopted this. It's probably the Seth Finley policy because he was in high school and he was one of the first one that we actually thought, let's use him consistently, but he's in high school. And so we determined at that point we're going to go talk to his parents. We'd like to ask him to be a part. First of all, what do you think? We would like your permission, but even before we ask your permission, what do you think about that? Because we want them to be involved in a value question like that, because it's a heady thing, stand on our stage for anybody. And maybe it's not best for his development. Maybe it's best for us because we need an awesome drummer, but maybe it's not best for his life. So we brought them into it, and his dad was really honest with us because they have a really good relationship about where his attitude was at that point, and he was like, that's great, but you need to talk about this, you need to talk about that, and just slamming the wall about this thing, and I think we'll be all right, and so we're like, okay, well, we'll do those things. And then since then, we've had one or two that we've needed to, that we've wanted to invite in, and we talk about it, we pray about it, like, we want to do that to a 16-year-old, do we really want to do that? Except this person's a prodigy, so do we want to let them just go figure that out in their high school band, or would we rather be the vehicle by which they figure that out, So, and I'm asking a question that sounds like, yeah, let's do that. I'm like, well, actually, no, we asked the question, do we want to do that? And is that what their parents would be into? Are they up for that? Because they are going to have to deal with some stuff at a younger age, and so that's become the way that we do it with people who are younger, is we always talk with their parents. So
I know we can keep talking about this for like hours and days and forever. So we're just going to stay all night. So sink in, get comfy. Just kidding. I'm going to pray to close us, and then we will see you in the morning at 9 a.m. right back here.